Hi, I'm later than usual today, but I want to share something based on a conversation we just had with a client. And in this conversation, we discussed about the possibility of reorganizing the structure of a code base when moving from a certain original language, let's say RPG, to a more modern language. Because one typical concern is that, I don't want just to change the syntax so that I get code that, the target compiler, Java, C#, whatever, will accept. I want also to get code that is idiomatic. And to produce code that is idiomatic, we can look at this at different ways. We can look at microidioms and microidioms and macroidioms. Microidioms are small snippets. So I want, for example, if I'm converting to Java and to a modern version of Java, to use the for each construct whenever it's possible. For certain operation, I may want to use streams. So for that, we have a good answer because we have the technology to identify common idioms and translate them so that we don't have a translation that is purely statement by statement, but we can recognize common structure and we can translate them as a whole, producing code that is more idiomatic at a micro level. The macro level is a little bit different because when we translate an application that is procedural in nature, we can produce classes, but the organization that will be obtained will not be the ideal organization. Typically, the methods will be too big, there could be classes with too many methods, and so on. And so some clients say, okay, but I want to go farther and do a sort of re-architecture of the code. Maybe split the classes into modules and packages, split the single class into maybe subclass and hyper classes and so on. Now, I think a couple of considerations that I want to share. One is that how one feel about this will be very different depending where they're coming from. If they are developers familiar with legacy code bases and legacy languages that are being retrained maybe to work with Java, C# or whatever, I think they will be already astonished by the fact that the new IDEs have a lot of refactoring capabilities. So if you give them code that is not great, but good IDEs, some re-architecture and some refactoring, they will be happy to do that over time. Yes. Other people that have maybe a higher bar because until the day before they work with super modern application with great unit tests and functional tests and low coupling and a lot of metrics and all the code is great and amazing, they may be a little more concerned about the quality of the code, and in their cases, they could be more interested in automatic re-architecturing or refactoring for reorganizing the code. Now, the challenge is that you typically don't want to do that in the same step as you do a migration, because doing a migration is already per se quite a challenge, so you don't want to make your life more difficult, because, why you should. Do one step, verify it works, and do to the next step. So typically what we will say is, let's translate the code, and then we will verify that. Once you're happy with the code that is working, then we can discuss automated migrations, automated refactorings, if you don't want to refactor on your own the code over time. Another possibility that we were discussing is having a sort of pipeline in 2 stages. So we could generate, let's say, the code taking advantage of microidioms, so the code is already nice to some level, verify this code compiles. If we have tests that those tests pass, and then doing the refactoring, as the second automated step, and rerun the test or re-verify that also that works. So in this case, we don't do that. The re-architecturing is a separate step in time, in the sense that we don't do that 6 months after we've done the migration, but we do that in two-step programmatically, in the sense that we create a pipelines that take the original code, migrate it to the new target language with, let's say, a very close architecture, and then we perform an auto transformation. And this is well supported by our approach in pipelines, in language engineering pipelines, because we have already a series of steps. We take the code, parse it, resolve symbols, analyze it, migrate and get the target ASD, and then generate the target code. So, it's already a series of steps. So that will be an additional step if you want. So that could be a way to produce something more without adding too much risk, because we have the possibility to verify that the original code pre-architecture is migrated correctly. And so in case of problems, we know that this is in the last step in the architecture problems, and this facilitates debugging and all the validation necessary for the acceptance of the finally produced code. So that was a little bit quick, a lot of information packed right after a meeting in preparation for the next one, but I hope it made sense. And if not, well, you can always insult me in the comments, right? Or ask follow-up questions and start up the discussion. Always happy to discuss with everybody. So thank you. Have a great day. And hopefully the heat wave is not reaching you, depending on where you are, in which continent and hemisphere you're based. In Italy, I have to say, it's pretty warm at the moment. Thank you. Bye.